there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie, and we're back at it again for another UAP Society, UAP, and UFO news. We got a lot of stories to cover this week, so without wasting any time, Justin, say hey.
Hey there, Cosmic Thrill Seekers. It's Justin with the UAP Society, and I'm glad you guys are tuning in.
All right, so let's get right into the first story, which is that News Nation is killing it. They have been interviewing so many people this week. Give me 1 second. I will pop that up in the chat for you to view as well. This week, Ross Coulhart, David Grush, Tim Burchett, Senator Mike Rounds, Rep. Eric Burleson, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Gary Nolan all appeared on News Nation talking about the gutted NDAA, UAPs and UFOs, non-human intelligences, and the U.S. government's role in all of this and the secrecy going on with that. So first up, we have a picture of Ross Coulhart, who went on the show.
Yeah, Ross Coulhart appeared saying he was, quote, excited for new information from UFO whistleblower David Grush, end quote.
Ross Coulhart is definitely Team Grush. Those guys are buddies. They're like peanut butter and jelly. Where one goes, the other one goes. So I think that's cool. Next up, we have a picture from when David Grush went on the Vargas report.
And the term Grushified was coined when David Grush went on News Nation for a two-part series of the Vargas report show, where he expressed his concerns, saying that we're witnessing, and quote, the latest or the greatest legislative failure in American history, end quote. And let's watch this quick clip.
Grushified. Let's get Grushified. Here we go with the video.
I want to just say something to the audience. This is live television, and every once in a while, even veteran broadcasters like myself make mistakes.
I thought
so
it was
that's what
great
happened
when
on
she made
Monday
this
night as
mistake.
I was introducing my exclusive interview with UAP whistleblower David Grush. Take a listen. Not only did that interview put Grush on the map, it put him in the hot seat on Capitol Hill. Grush testified in front of Congress alongside two other military veterans. All right, as you heard, I was trying to say Grush testified, and I said Grushified. We moved on. I didn't even know I did it, but social media did not. The posts and the comments started flooding in, many suggesting that my flub should become an official term. Others were asking for a definition.
Yeah,
so here it is, as of today. To grushify is a verb, meaning to make a solemn declaration under oath for the purpose of establishing secret government UAP programs, at least on this show. All right, feel free to hashtag that.
Feel free to hashtag that. She said that with an attitude. I thought that was cute. I do that sometimes too. If I'm like thinking faster than my mouth can move, it's like I start mushing words together.
Yep.
But that one's perfect. I think it's cute. We're gonna coin it. We're keeping that one. Stick it in your pocket, guys.
Grushified.
We're gonna use it later. All right. So next up, we have Tim Burchett, who went on the show as well, and in his interview, he said, quote, the inmates are running the asylum and we gotta put a stop to this, end quote, referring to those working in the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Tim's over it, guys. Dadgummit, release the files. In addition, Senator Mike Rounds also made an appearance saying, quote, I think the American people would love to, know more about what our capabilities are. And was there actually, something found at some point in the past that helped us to develop some of our technologies? That remains to be seen, or at least it remains to be disclosed, end quote. Say it again for the people in the back. All right, next up.
Even Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke with News Nation this week. After a serious discussion about the Fermi paradox, him and Elizabeth Vargas shared a laugh about how Neil doesn't want to meet the dumb aliens that crash land onto Earth. And for the record, those are his words, not ours.
Yeah, he was throwing shade, trying to make a joke about it. But honestly, I'm here for it because in the beginning, I remember a time where Neil deGrasse Tyson was denying this, the river in Egypt. That boy did not want to admit nothing. No. Now at least he's saying if he's going to meet the aliens, he wants to meet the smart ones
that don't crash.
Right.
So we thought that was cute.
All right. Gary Nolan made me laugh too hard in his interview with Ross Coulhart when he said, quote, get ready for this one, you can't wait for daddy government to tell you what you think you already know, end quote, in this clip here.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Daddy government.
In the same way, military pilots testified to Congress that they've felt discouraged from reporting unexplained sightings, be they alien or otherwise. Nolan says that same stigma exists in the scientific community.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who I talk to behind the scenes who are academics, mainstream academics. They just don't want to talk about it yet because they feel that the stigma is still too high.
And Nolan says he believes researchers, not the government, will have to spearhead the effort to explain UFOs in ways all of us can understand.
There's something that they're trying to hide, right?
That's
and
for sure.
You have the people who've come from within the government who've said it, that it's real. And then you have the government twisting itself into pretzels to try to not admit what's going on. You can't wait for daddy government to tell you what you think you already know. They don't need to give you permission to move forward. But why we do need government is that, frankly, you still need the funding structures, right? So how is it that we create an incentive, both for the people on the inside as well as the government, to release the information? I mean, the incentive shouldn't be we're all at the doors with pitchforks, right? The incentive should be that this is going to help the country in some way.
There's an opportunity right now.
Big
there?
opportunity.
If they're real, what are the potentials for humanity that come out of that?
I look at this and say, well, there's somebody smarter than us.
Right.
And so I don't think that I'm going to have an anti-gravity
I'd like to
craft,
talk
before the end of my existence. But what I do see is a new way, perhaps, to think about the universe. And so I look at that as an opportunity to learn from somebody who's more intelligent. It's simple as that.
Simple as that.
Simple as
Easy
that.
peasy. If there's something out there smarter than us, then hey, teach me something.
Yep.
All right, so what do you guys think about all those appearances? I think News Nation is killing it. They are on fire.
Oh yeah. They're one of the only mainstream news sources or media sources that's actually covering this topic in depth.
Aren't they brand new though? Like I remember some.
Yeah, they're fairly new to the scene. Yeah.
Okay, but still, they're doing a way better job than mainstream media. That's for sure.
Right.
They definitely saw the opportunity and ran with it, and they didn't have that constraint that other, the normal media giants have, to stay away from taboo subjects. They saw an opportunity and took it, and since then they haven't stopped since the Grush, the original Grush interview.
I've actually read somewhere that the initial interview was supposed to be on another mainstream station, and they did not want to run the story.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
they ended up going to News Nation, and they're like, "We're doing this," and then they exploded. It was like a good opportunity for them to get coverage too, and now everybody's going to them now.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
they
like
took
everyone
that.
else
They
is
took that
lost.
ball and they ran it all the way down the field for a freaking touchdown. Because boy, they've been on. Like I said, they've been on fire with all of this ever since they took the ball and ran with it. So I'm grateful for them. They publish stuff. They publish stuff so often on this topic. It's like if you're listening, you're gonna hear it.
Breaking Points is another good one where they'll talk about some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anything new was revealed in any of the interviews. They, we seem to be stuck on that loop of, government's not playing ball, government's not playing ball. We know it's there. Just release it. Like it's that loop that's never ending.
Yeah, you're right. This week, nothing really new per se happened, but people have been responding to what just happened last week and the things that we mentioned last week. I mean, there's been. What were you going to say, Will?
There's been some new things that have dropped this week.
Well, let's finish the rest of our stories. Next up is let's start a shift storm. Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, right.
Due to the dismantling of the UAPDA, website paradigmresearchgroup.org is calling for something that they're referring to as a shift storm. To explain, Steve Bassett says,
"It's time to manifest some activism focused on getting those hearings in January of 2024. How? It's called a tweet storm. Given this is broader, we shall call it a shift storm. In 2014, a team on behalf of Paradigm Research Group pounded all 535 congressional offices with 2 million plus tweets regarding the citizen hearing on disclosure.
The shift storm focuses on just the offices of these three heroes: Senators Schumer, Warner, and Rubio. Why? Collectively, they have the power to schedule and hold the necessary Senate Intel Committee UAP hearings. Several dozen witnesses are ready to testify, and their testimony will set the stage for the president to formally end the truth embargo immediately. After that, the UAP Disclosure Act could easily be reconsidered and passed. The goal is to deliver 100,000 tag tweets and 100,000 emails, each to the offices of the senators Schumer, Warner, and Rubio by January 1st, 2024.
All right. And Curious Explorer on X shares, Steve's effort is worth supporting. It involves pushing the Senate Select Intel Committee to hold hearings. The SSCI has considerable power to make public otherwise classified information, bypassing the Pentagon bureaucracy. It's a good route to pursue. #end UAP secrecy.
So let's start that shift storm. I mean, it's not too hard to
Yeah.
send out some tagged tweets and some emails. And I really feel like if we bombard these guys with these types of things, it could have an impact. It definitely could
right.
have an impact. What do you guys think?
There's actually a script that I sent out to local representatives, and they had it on Reddit. I can see if I still have it, because it makes it easier for you, and it has the whole script of what we're asking for, like right there. And then all you have to do is sign it at the bottom, and you can send that out.
Cool.
So you don't have to think about it.
That's awesome. Maybe you can
add to it.
share it on the UAP Society Discord, and then everybody watching this can access that through the Discord, send it in. We might be able to cover those numbers.
Yeah.
If you're not on the Discord, I highly recommend you guys joining.
I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, for anybody out there that's not watching, or that's watching, that's not on the Discord. Sorry.
So yeah, today is the 17th of December 2023, and they're calling for this effort to be done by January 1st. So we got about 2 weeks to get it done, guys. Hop online, get it done,
Yep.
send out those tweets or X's, I don't know what we're calling it anymore,
Yeah.
and send those emails. We got to support these guys that are able to do these things that'll help us make the changes we want.
Yep. Moving on. So now we have Danny Sheehan talking about the government, consciousness, and ETs. Lawyer Danny Sheehan made an appearance on the New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove YouTube channel discussing the UFO UAP disclosure process. Let's watch a clip.
There's a job we have to do to get our citizenry to actually elevate our collective consciousness and try to get the instrumentalities of our government to reflect a higher state of consciousness, to at least move our military back to a legitimate defense posture and out of this offensive posture that they're in. And it becomes directly pertinent with regard to the UFO issue, because they're trying to use the technology to develop this offensive weapon. It's a first strike weapon. They actually, the code name for the program is called Prompt Global Strike.
It's super important that we really need to raise our vibration and raise our awareness of what's going on. That's so critical. It's key to understanding the implications of the UFO UAP phenomena.
And I love that somebody of Danny Sheehan's stature is bringing up things like how the collective consciousness has to be raised, and then ultimately that has to be then, the government has to do the same thing, and that instead of always being on the defense where they're ready to go do something, take a step back and chill a little bit. You know what I mean? I think that he's really bringing a lot of good awareness to this, and just the fact that he's calling for everybody to be smarter about this and to have some empathy for your humanity. I think that's really important. Danny Sheehan also has a website, newparadigminstitute.org, and I feel like I need to move this really fast. Okay, so the New Paradigm Institute, founded by acclaimed civil rights and constitutional attorney Daniel Sheehan, is dedicated to advocating for the public release of information held by the government surrounding the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, or what was commonly known as unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Our government keeps too many secrets, especially and including UAP. The public has a right to know what the government has learned after decades of study. The time for excuses, opaqueness, and cover-ups is over. Congress can't justify continued secrecy. Congress can't say the time isn't right. The public has waited decades for the truth. If not now, then when? The public deserves an honest and transparent government. Now is the time to unite in a common cause and set aside any partisan differences. Now is the time for action. That's why we're launching initiatives to compel disclosure and transparency. Please join us in this fight against excessive government secrecy. Together, we can win disclosure of the truth and reality of UAP.
I love that.
Yeah, so again, it's like a call to effort. It's like an appeal to the masses to come together and let the government know we want to know.
Yeah.
And I agree that it's just as important to stop the rhetoric of first strike and weaponized kind of contact. Like we have to drop that and raise our consciousness, but start thinking about creating peace, because we're not going to get any kind of quality contact if we continue on with this rhetoric. So 100% in agreement. I don't know how realistic it is to think in those terms right now, but at least somebody's saying it.
Yeah, there's actually a Grant Cameron was actually at this event, and it's one of the most important events that helped push this forward. But in 2013, they had a citizen hearing, and Dan Sheehan was there, and the former members of Congress asked him the theological implications of disclosure, and he proceeded to tell, and it was crazy because it was like a court-like environment, but he proceeded to tell them that older cultures like Native Americans and some of these other cultures were much more in tune with higher levels of consciousness, and that there is actually a soul. And this is the kind of information we're going to have to start learning to finally understand and accept this new UFO UAP information, and that it does have a profound change on what's going on. But it's he's pretty awesome.
Donald?
I was gonna say, like, if you were the alien being or whatever traveling somewhere, you wouldn't want to be met with violence, right?
No.
Why would you even make yourself appear or anything or any of that stuff? We have to open up our hearts if we expect anything else to go forward.
Amen. Yes.
Love.
Spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. Thank you guys for that. All right, we're going to move on to our next story, which is that the interviews with the late Colonel Philip J. Corso surfaced this week on YouTube. This week, 2 different interviews with the late Colonel Philip J. Corso were featured on 2 different YouTube channels or shows. The first one was Jeremy Corbell's Weaponized, Go UFO, and another channel called Bob Lazar Tube.
For those of you that may not know, Colonel Philip J. Corso was a high-ranking Army intelligence official and the officer in charge of the U.S. Army's Foreign Technology Department at the Pentagon between late 1950 and 1960s. Colonel Philip Corso shook the world with his personal account of a Pentagon office charged with slow-dripping pieces of alien technology into the hands of major labs and corporations. According to Corso, the tech they provided came from UFO crashes near none other than Roswell, New Mexico. Coincidence?
I think not.
Jinx. He also wrote a book called The Day After Roswell, which became a bestseller in 1997, which just so happens to be the 50th anniversary of the Roswell events and the year he gave these interviews.
Right. So the picture that we're looking at up on the screen now is a screenshot from the Weaponized podcast. This interview was done in 1997. And then this interview was given on April 13th, 1998 at the Buenos Aires Hotel in Rome, Italy. Have you guys heard of Colonel Philip J. Corso before now? What's your knowledge on this guy?
Yeah, I found on the interwebs his actual book. Like you can actually get the download of the book, the information. And he disseminates that a lot of the technology that they were starting to reverse engineer, there was a process where they would take that technology and find out how we could utilize it in some way. And one of the alleged technologies that came from that research was optic cables.
Fiber optics.
Fiber
I heard
optics.
that story too. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and also night vision and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think Velcro, but he didn't use the word Velcro. He used another word, and I can't remember what it is, but it's called essentially Velcro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hook and loop.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Ross Coulhart on tow. This week, on Theories of Everything with Kurt Mungle, Ross Coulhart discussed how the U.S. government gets away with hiding UFO craft and tech for over 7 decades. And we got a little clip to watch.
Let's assume, hypothetically, that there are private aerospace companies that have been sitting on technology for 50, 60, 70 years. In the first category, let's say Roswell happened in 1947, and let's say around about 1950 or so, or perhaps in the 1970s, the Roswell craft was passed on to a private aerospace company. What happens then if they've had possession of that object for 50, 60 years? Does the US government really have a claim on that technology? In law, there's a question mark. And what if, as I noticed somebody was recently asserting just in the last 24 hours on Twitter, what if, say, technology from recoveries in the US has been moved extraterritorially into Canada? Oh, gee, that's interesting. What if Canada was secretly in possession of retrieved technology that is owned by a US aerospace company and being worked on by,
all these what
say,
ifs.
Canadian government scientists in collaboration with US scientists? What's the law on that? Does the US Congress have extraterritorial control over that technology? Interesting question.
I think he's dropping.
And then
truth
separately
bombs.
from that, another truck hole, a loophole that you can drive a truck through here is,
He's saying it without saying it, is what
what
he's
if
doing.
those private aerospace companies have recovered that technology using private military contractors, as I understand has very much been the case in the last few years?
BlackRock?
What if it's been entirely recovered by those private aerospace companies, perhaps in collaboration with the US government, but they've spent all the money and all the resources on doing that? Shouldn't they ought properly to have the rights to that technology? I mean, imagine hypothetically if it is true. Just imagine if it is true that, say, Lockheed Martin, let's say Lockheed Martin has a spacecraft. Let's say they've got a perfectly operating flying saucer from, say, Kingman, Texas, sitting on blocks somewhere in a cave, sitting in a private facility somewhere. Why do they have to give that technology knowledge to the Congress? And why should they? They're a private aerospace company. They've got every reason to want to develop an advantage over their corporate rivals.
Even if that company was dealing with the government?
Well, that's the issue. The issue is I've spoken to people at a very high level in Silicon Valley who have resources and money, who are very angry that they believe technology was vested into private aerospace companies 50, 60 years ago when they didn't exist. And they're now aware of this. And what they're not angry about is that the public don't know about it. What they're angry about is that they've not been cut into it.
That it's not lining
That's
their
what's going on
pockets.
here. Right. And it may all sound like a wacky conspiracy theory, but let's see it
Big old
investigated.
double cross. The first thing that came to mind listening to that was, there's actually private companies out there that have been holding on to this technology for 60, 70 years. And they haven't made a profit out of it yet. Like, that's a lot of capital to be holding on to and not fully taking advantage of, making the most money out of it. So what are they doing with that technology? They're going to hang on to it for another 60, 70 years?
If it was up to them,
how does
probably.
that make them any money? Yeah.
If it was up to them, probably. Go ahead, Donald.
I was just going to say, if a company's holding on to something, maybe they haven't found a way to make a profit off of it. So maybe it's if it's free energy or something, they're not going to release that without finding a way to charge people for it. So they'll sit on it as long as possible, right?
Yeah. We were listening to, what is it called? A Twitter space?
Yeah, Twitter space.
A Twitter space earlier, where Dr. Stephen Greer was talking, and he was also talking about how they found free energy way back in. Oh, was that you? We were talking about this earlier. Back in 1901, they had the ability to have free energy machines, but somebody stopped it and said, unless you could put a meter on it,
Yeah.
Unless you could put a meter on it and I could make money from it, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
So it's just so terrible that this whole thing is so like it's all about money. It's all about greed. It's all about power. It's all about keeping your pockets lined nice and comfy while the rest of us are sitting out here looking stupid.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Electric vehicles were actually first developed in the early 1900s. And the oil companies at the time shut it down because obviously the people weren't paying to buy gas from the oil company. So they just got rid of their competition.
Which is also comparable to how marijuana became illegal because it was a direct competition with the tobacco crops, and the tobacco farmers had it in with the people that made the laws, and they were like, yo, homie, hook me up and make that guy's crop illegal so I don't have to compete with him and I can get all the money myself. Same scenario.
Yeah.
They actually have, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Dr. Greer has a documentary that came out that's really good at breaking this down for people to understand how it's done.
Yep.
And it's called, you can pay for it on like Amazon and stuff like that, but I think it's still free on YouTube right now. So that somebody had released the whole video in full. And it goes back, it's called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It.
Yep.
And he goes in, and it goes all the way back to Tesla. And Tesla had figured out how to give us free wireless technology.
Exactly.
But at the time, J.P. Morgan Chase owned the copper line business, and he would lose all of that if this technology came out. And he's already quoted saying there's no money in that. And he actually stopped funding Tesla. And, Tesla died penniless, which is kind of like super shady.
Yeah, and when he died, there was people that just showed up at his place and took all of his
the
documents.
FBI.
Yep, they just took everything. And I think the family has even sued since then, trying to get their family's property back since it was technically stolen.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to
I don't think they're going to get it back, but it's just, worth knowing.
Yeah, and what Coulhart was saying also about a contractor holding that, because they're not technically government, they don't have to answer to FOIA requests. So... and it's part of the disinformation and confusion, because then, we have some of these representatives finding out about this, or even other public people or entities finding out, and they'll submit a FOIA request, and the government's like, oh, we don't have anything. And they're telling the truth. They don't have anything. It's because it's not going to the contractor. So it's just like this loophole. And former CIA John Ramirez talked about this, and he's like, that's how they do it. That's how so they don't have to answer to anybody.
It's a loophole by design to keep us out the know, is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
All right, next up, we have, there's not going to be any more reimbursement funds for UFO reverse engineering programs.
We have a tweet from Klaus who says, no more IRAD reimbursement funds for UFO reverse engineering programs. The president isn't going to sign this into law just for fun. This shit is real. And in highlights, and forgive me, I need to get up on the screen to be able to see this, it says, limitation regarding independent research and development. Independent research and development funding related to unidentified anomalous phenomena shall not be allowable as indirect expenses for purposes of contracts covered by such instruction, unless the material and information is made available to the appropriate congressional committees and leadership. So to me, correct me if I'm interpreting this correctly, that's basically the government saying, you ain't going to get no more allowance unless you doing your chores. We're not going to give you no more money unless you tell us where that money is going and how you're spending it, which is the problem now, because we got, $3 billion missing dollars in the budget that we don't know where that money went, right?
Actually, trillion.
Oh,
yeah, 2.3.
2.3 trillion. That's because they're charging $15,000 for a toilet seat on somebody's expense report. That's what they're doing. They're charging up all this money. Right. And then it's really going to reverse engineering programs.
Right.
I also have a picture, Chris, of the congress.gov website where you can go to find more of this information. And I will put those links in the video description below so you could check that out later. Silver Girl, go ahead. I apologize.
No worries. That statement to me just basically is disclosure. So in other words, they were paying for reverse engineering of UFO technology, and now they're not going to pay for it anymore. And we're not going to tell you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's like, oh my God. I don't even know where to begin with that.
I know.
If this doesn't scream disclosure, I don't know what will.
Exactly.
I mean, some
Yeah.
people wouldn't even believe in this stuff if like a UFO showed up on their lawn. And I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's so many people that are like
Yeah.
actively denying this.
Mm-hmm.
Actively. Because the evidence is there from many different facets of the arena.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can go from
mean-
the scientific point of view, you can go from the spiritual point of view, you can go from the video evidence, you can go from the personal accounts. I
You
mean,
can even go from the congressional point of view now, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, they introduced legislation, you know, to start a disclosure process of actual records, and it got fought by the people that are paid off by the Lockheed Martins, the Raytheons,
the Radiance Technologies.
Yeah, you know, those people have certain congressional members in their pocket, you know, and the fact that they fought so hard to get this verbiage out of the legislation is disclosure to me. If there was no there, you know, what are they covering up?
Why is there a curtain there if you ain't trying to hide nothing, you know?
Yeah, so that's disclosure right there for me.
Yeah. I
What's
agree.
What's also interesting about the whole how they rephrased the bill and everything is that you had the bipartisan agreement that we're going to get this out, we want this bill out, and it's bipartisan. And out of nowhere, your own 3 representatives, or it was like 3 or 2 who came out, and 2 mainly, like when you look at their like donors or their PAC donors, it's from the intelligence community. Not only that, but they also have involvement with the intelligence community before office. So it's just like very, very weird. It's just like
Follow the money.
Yeah, and it's shady that that's where they're from, but it brings to question. And what's cool about all this happening is that, you know, with the Oversight Committee and Congress and them finding out about this, they're starting to realize this isn't really like a democracy, and it hasn't been for a while because of you have these unelected, you know, bureaucrats running the show and telling us what we can and can't know, and they're using our money and not telling us what they're using our money for.
Right. And when you ask, it's like you don't have enough clearance to know. Even if you are the president of the United frickin' States of America.
Yeah, so that makes me wonder who does have the high enough clearance.
Yeah.
You know?
Federal government.
Right.
Allergies.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. And our last story for the evening is an optimistic one. That's why I saved it. I'm going to say best for last. Why not? I could say that, right? It's my show. All right. Billy Carson shares an optimistic view on the current UAP situation. Billy Carson from Gaia TV and ForbiddenKnowledge.com shares his assessment of humanity and gives advice on how to step into your power. Let's watch these clips.
No, it's starting to really break down. I mean, people that used to hear me talk about UFOs and aliens and life on other planets, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, are now all coming back to me saying, hey, I can't believe it. You were right the whole time, you know. So they're starting to really believe it, and they're starting to ask more questions.
Good.
So even though we're not getting the kind of disclosure we actually want from the government, we are getting the fact that, you know, they're talking about it enough to where now people are saying, oh, this is actually real. There are potentially UFOs and beings from other planets and so forth and so on. So now it's an open discussion. Even when I'm in restaurants, sometimes I hear people sitting around talking about UFOs and UAPs and aliens. Whereas before, a decade ago, I would never hear a conversation like that openly in an open public place. So, you know, it's just gradually, drip by drip, people are becoming more aware and more understanding and opening their minds more to the reality that we're not alone. And they're starting to ask more questions. So the benefit of all of this, you know, Arrow and ATIP and all these other programs, the benefit that we do have at least is the fact that people are becoming more open to this information.
Nice.
All right.
One more.
We definitely have to rise up a lot more. You've heard me say before that, you know, mankind is still a baby trying to learn how to crawl and walk. I think we're crawling now pretty good. We just got to really stand up and take some really good, strong steps because we've got to get to the point where we claim our birthright, which is a higher level of wisdom, understanding, and consciousness.
Yes.
Right now, you know, I think the majority of people at their heart really have decent or good intentions, the majority of people. But the problem that we still have is we're so easily swayed to and fro by one agenda or one idea or concept or another. And it gets us so distracted that we lose sight of our true, you know, pure loving self. At our core, I believe the majority of people are pure and have pure love in their heart and want to see things change for the better and want to see themselves change for the better. But we're so susceptible right now to these distractions. And it's purely because of what you just said, the higher level of consciousness, the higher level of wisdom and understanding different perspective, gaining perspective, being able to separate yourself from your thoughts, understanding that you're not your thoughts, you are the observer of your thoughts.
Wow.
And being able to distinguish that and separate yourself from what your body is physically doing based on the input it's getting, and then being able to make adjustments to yourself and your thinking ability on the fly. And that will change the outcome of where you're headed in this paradigm.
I love that.
And so again, it's more about people learning about who they truly are and how to tap into who they are on the inside, and to access that love frequency and to gain that empathy for other people on the outside, so that we can move together as a solid unit, as people on this planet, and regain our birthright, which is not only taking back control of this planet, but also being able to move out into space as well.
I love what Billy said. I think it was super positive. You know, he started off by saying that, you know, this is a conversation that 20 years or 30 years ago, whatever, you know, you would never hear anybody talking about. But now, you know, more people are talking about this openly and candidly and casually even. So I think that's cool. And I really enjoyed his message about raising our consciousness, stepping into our power, and coming together as a collective humanity.
Very well said. Very well said. The stigma is dropping. The stigma is reducing.
It's dissipating. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to keep reducing the stigma.
What was you guys' reactions to that?
Definitely evidence that more and more people are waking up, that the conversation is aligning. The collective consciousness is aligning. It's starting to spread. You can feel the spread. Yay.
That you're starting to visibly perceive the difference in the world and different people. Like, I work in IT, and there are times I talk to clients, and then I, sometimes test them in a way, or I'll bring something up, or I'll say Congress or something. And it's like, you go fishing, right? And then they're like, oh yeah. And then it's just amazing some of the things I hear them talk about. And then I'm like, okay, near-death experiences. And then I'll mention that. And then they're like, oh yeah, I love those. And then they start to open up, and we really do. What Billy was saying, we do have the power to change all this. He said something in another quote, I guess, or statement, that if we were to wake up tomorrow, like all of us, and just be like, we're all just not going to go to work, and we're going to start demanding something, it's like, what are they going to do? Fire all of us? They're not going to do that. You know what I mean? That's how much power we have. And we could do that tomorrow. We could do that. That's just crazy. And I feel like it's getting closer and closer to that point where we do something like that.
Yeah.
Good point.
Hopefully something is about to really change with everything, and all of the old is gonna crumble down, and
it's happening. It's happening. We're clicking up that roller coaster, guys, and the precipice and the swoop down is on its way. I feel
this is what it looks like when an empire falls.
Oh snap!
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is the beginning stages of and they're over there trying. And I was telling this to you, Leslie, the other day, was that it's like trying to punch the ocean waves to prevent it from hitting the shore. It's like you can't do it. Yeah, you're gonna get wet. There's sand everywhere.
I mean, it's apparently or supposedly already done. You know what I mean? Like we're just going through the experience of it. It's already I don't know if written.
Donald, did you have a thought too?
Oh, no, I was just going to mention, when he was talking about people talking about this a lot more, I was in the restaurant with my family a few weeks ago, and I overheard a conversation about, consciousness and aliens and stuff, and I was just, laughing to myself, because I'm like, this is the same sort of thing I bring to my family, too.
Nice. Yeah. I'm the type of person, I would have had a hard time not joining their conversation. I would have just swooped in the booth and been like, so what you talk about, guys? Right. But yeah, I'm really glad that this conversation is becoming more common. It needs to be frank and out in the open. So that's why I also want to thank everybody that's on this call right now. You guys are contributing to this. We are the disclosure. I want to thank everybody in the audience who's tuned in to watch this. While you're here, please do us a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, drop us a comment down below, share with your family and friends, and help us to get this conversation to an even bigger level. We got to level up, guys. It's time to level up. Level up.
Let's manifest the new reality.
Exactly. All right. Everybody, thank you, guys. We appreciate you guys for being here. Do us a favor, tune in next week, because Best Bet will be back. All right. Deuces, guys. Much love, everybody. Namaste.
Catch you on the next one.